Hello everyone, I'm student nurse Nikka Andrea as Pilas, and today I'm going to perform obtaining of vital signs. Accurate measurement of vital sign is critical because it reflects the body's basic functioning. It also serves as a baseline data which allows us to track changes in patient's condition. It also recognizes early patient's deterioration and prevents harm or errors that may occur. Vital signs include temperature, pulse rate, respiration rate, and blood pressure. Paraphernalias needed are digital auxiliary thermometer for patient's body temperature, stethoscope and sphygmomanometer for the measurements of patient's blood pressure, watch with swift second hand to measure patient's pulse rate and respiration rate, and of course, alcohol for disinfection and to avoid contamination. So now, I am going to start by taking my patient's body temperature. So the body temperature is very important because it reflects the balance between the heat produced and the heat loss of the body. And there are a few sites in which we could obtain its measurement. It could be through our oral, temporal, rectal, axillary, or through the tympanic membrane. But for now, I'm going to take my patient's body temperature through her axillary site. So prior to the conduct of this procedure, I am going to close the door for the patient's privacy, and I'm going to adjust the light and adjust the room temperature. This is for the patient's comfort, and of course, perform a hand hygiene to disinfect and avoid contamination. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce myself to my patient and verify her identity, and of course, explain to her the procedure that I am about to do. Good day, ma'am. I'm Nikka Andrea as Pilas, your student nurse for today. So today, ma'am, I'm going to take your body temperature through your axillary side or through your armpit. Is it okay to you, ma'am? May I see your wristband? Please state your name. Your birthday, please.
July 16, 2000.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, may I pull your sleeve so that I can put the thermometer? So now, I'm going to use a digital thermometer for my patient's body temperature through her axillary site. But before I'm going to place it on the area, I'm gonna need first to take a look and see if there's any scars or lesions, and pat dry the area if it is wet. So ma'am, can you please raise your hand for me? Okay, so now we're just gonna have to wait for a minute or up until the thermometer beeps, which indicates that it has already obtained the body temperature of the patient. So now, ma'am, we have just to wait for the temperature to beep, okay? Alright, so after this happen, I'm gonna need to inform my patient of the result of her temperature, and of course, disinfect the thermometer and perform hand hygiene. And also, I'm gonna document the data that I have gathered. Okay, ma'am, lift your arm for a minute. So, okay, your temperature, ma'am, is 36.8 degrees Celsius, which is within the normal range. Okay, so I have just done disinfecting the thermometer and already performed my hand hygiene, and of course document the data that I have gathered to my patient in her TPR sheet. So now I'm going to proceed on taking my patient's pulse rate. So the pulse rate is a wave of blood created by the contraction of the left ventricle of the heart, and in order for me to measure it, I'm gonna need to do a palpation on the pulse sites of the patient, which could be through her temporal, carotid, apical, brachial, radial, femoral, popliteal, tibial, and her dorsalis pedis. But today, I'm going to be palpating for her radial pulse because it is the easiest and the most accessible pulse site. So, prior to conduct this procedure, I'm gonna need to do first the 4 pre-introductory steps, which is to close the door for the secure of the patient and to provide an adequate lighting and adjust the room temperature for the patient comfort, and of course perform a hand hygiene. So good day, ma'am. I am Nikka Andrea as Pilas, your student nurse for today. So today I'm gonna need to measure your pulse rate. Is that okay for you, ma'am? So let me see your hand, ma'am. Please state your name.
January Udas.
Your birthday, please.
July 16th, 2000.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So now I'm gonna assess your pulse rate. Can you give me your hand, ma'am? Okay, so now to locate the radial artery or for her radial pulse, I'm gonna need to use these 2 fingers of my hands, and I won't be using my thumb because the thumb actually has a pulse in it, and also I just have to trace her thumb and place my finger in this area like this and feel her pulse, and it is important to know that aside from the number of beats per minute to count, I also need to check for the strength of her pulse, which is graded on a 0 to 3 plus scale. So 0 being the pulse is absent, 1 plus if it is weak, 2 plus if it is normal, and 3 plus if it is bonding. And of course, I also need to check for the rhythm of it, if it is regular or irregular. So now that I have found her radial pulse, I'm going to start counting the beats per minute. Okay, so now I have obtained my patient's pulse rate. So, okay, ma'am, your pulse rate is at 78 beats per minute, and it's graded 2 plus, which means it is normal and it has an regular rhythm. Okay, so after doing the procedure or after taking my patient's pulse rate, I can now just simply proceed to taking her respiration rate without removing my fingers on her radial artery, and simply just look at the rise and fall for her chest as so not to make the patient's conscious and uneasy, which can actually alter her breathing. Okay, and of course, this gives much more accurate result for her respiration rate. So now I'm going to be measuring my patient's respiration rate. So the respiration rate is simply the number of breathing of a person takes in a minute, and it is usually done when the person is at rest and by just simply counting the number of rising of the chest of the patient. So prior to the conduct of this procedure, I am going to do the 4 pre-introductory steps, which is to ensure my patient's security and privacy, and give her a comfort to perform a hand hygiene, and of course introduce myself to the patient and verify my identity and tell her the procedure that I'm about to do. So good morning. So good morning, ma'am. I am Nikka Andrea as Pilas, your student nurse. May I see your wristband, ma'am? Please state your name.
January Chair Udas.
Your birthday, please.
July 16, 2000.
Oh, thank you so much, ma'am. So, and today I'm gonna be counting your respiration rate. So, is it okay to you, ma'am? I just need you to be at ease and be relaxed. Okay, so for counting the respiration rate, I'm not only simply counting for the numbers of the breath she takes, but also for the depth of her breathing, if it is labored or unlabored. And for the rhythm, if it is regular or irregular, and for the character, of course. So, and it is important to know that that one rise and one fall of the chest would be equivalent to one respiration rate. So, okay, ma'am, here, and just relax. Okay, so ma'am, your respiration rate is 16 breaths per minute, which is between the normal range, and it has a regular rhythm and a labor. Okay, so after doing the procedure, I need to do a hand hygiene and of course document the pulse rate and at the respiratory rate in her TPR sheet. Okay, so now I'm going to be measuring for her fourth vital sign, which is the blood pressure. So the blood pressure is the pressure of the circulating blood against the walls of the arteries, and it could be obtained with the use of stethoscope and a sphygmomanometer. Okay, prior to the procedure, I have to do the pre-introductory steps, which are to ensure the patient's privacy, to provide comfort, and to do the hand hygiene and introduce myself to the patient and tell her what the procedure will be all about. So, good morning, ma'am. I am Nikka Andrea S. Pilas. So, today I'll be taking your blood pressure. Is that okay to you, ma'am? May I see your wristband? Please state your name. Your birthday, ma'am.
July 16,000.
Thank you so much. So, prior to the conduct of the procedure, I have already checked for my equipment if they are cleaned and that they are well functioning, and also the correct size of the cup and I'm gonna need for my patient. And of course, I inspected my patient if she has any injuries, cast or bandage or intravenous infusion, blood transfusion, or any arterial venous fistula which could hinder me from taking her blood pressure in a particular limb. So, since my patient is sitting, I'm gonna need to make sure that both of her feet are on the ground because the blood pressure increases if the legs are crossed. So, okay. I'm gonna have to place her arm at a heart level because if the arm is at a lower level, then it would give us a higher blood pressure or reading. Okay, so since this is the initial examination of my patient, I'm gonna have to do a preliminary palpatory determination of her systolic pressure to avoid having a lower systolic reading by oscillatory method if there is an oscillatory gap. And to do that, I'm gonna first need to place the tap around her arm. So, ma'am, can I pull up your sleeve? So now I'm gonna put this cuff in your arms. Okay, just about 1 to 2 centimeters above the anti-cubical space. Okay, and palpitate for her brachial artery through the use of my 2 fingers. Once I have found the brachial artery, I'm gonna start inflating the cuff, and until I no longer feel the pulse of her brachial artery, and I'm gonna deflate the cuff. So now I have already taken her estimated systolic pressure, which is at 110 millimeters of mercury. So for the actual, I'm going to take her blood pressure. I'm gonna need to inflate the cuff about 30 millimeters of mercury higher than the estimated systolic pressure. This is to ensure or to avoid missing the oscillatory gap, which is the temporary disappearance of the carotid cuff sound while deflating the cup. Okay, so for the actual procedure, I'm gonna need to use my stethoscope, but first I'm going to disinfect the ear and the pieces of the diaphragm and the bell of my stethoscope. Okay, for this time, I'm gonna use my bell part of my stethoscope because the bell part is best used for hearing low-pitch sounds. So, once I have found the brachial artery, I'm gonna need to inflate the cup up until 140 millimeter of mercury. So now, I'm gonna fully inflate the cuff, and the first sound that I will hear would be the systolic pressure, and for the diastolic number, it would be the period of silence after the last sound that I will heard. And so, since this is my patient's initial examination, I'm gonna need to do the procedure again on her other arm. Can I pull up your sleeves now? So, ma'am, I have got your blood pressure, and it is 110/870 millimeter per cup of mercury. Okay, and it is within the normal range. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your cooperation. And so I already have her blood pressure, and after doing the procedure, I'm gonna need to fully deflate the cuff and wipe the cuff with a disinfectant so it could reduce the risk of cross-contamination. So, and of course, I'm gonna need to do a hand hygiene and plug the data that I have gathered in my patient's TPR sheet. And that would be all for my return demonstration of obtaining vital signs. Thank you very much.